Pitmasters, what is up? Today we're going to find out if I can make the perfect crust on a steak. I was at an event in Germany and they had this style of grill there. They cooked up a steak with the perfect crust. I want to replicate that crust. I want to see if I can do that too. But before we're going to do that, first we're going to create a beautiful relish to go with it. The main ingredient for our relish is bell peppers. We got these beautiful sweet pointy ones. We're going to be supported with some shallots and some radish. We'll start with de-seeding our bell pepper. Now we'll press it flat. That way it's easier to slice. Did you guys know bell peppers have nicotine in them? So, you know they're very addictive, right? I'm going to put the bell pepper in a bowl and now we'll start chopping our shallots. So we're going to need 3 of these. Add the shallots to the bell pepper. Beautiful radishes. We're just going to clean them off. Take off the green. Let's put the radishes in with our bell peppers and our shallots. And to this we're going to add vinegar. We're going to add that until it's fully submerged. So we'll add a little bit of salt to this and then we'll set this aside. And when our steak is done, we're going to continue finishing off our relish. Now we are going to prepare our steak. This is a beautiful Uruguayan entrecot. It has a little bit of marbling, but it has a lot of flavor. So we'll open up the package, cut it into steaks, and then we'll start searing it. Now I want to have thick steaks, but not too thick, because we're putting them under a broiler and it's going to be searing hot. So I'm put my hand here and we're going to take like 1.5 finger thick steaks. So a little less thick than you normally do. Because this steak is going to be all about the crust. Now it's time to fire up our broiler. So we're going to turn on the gas and hit ignition. Our broiler is coming up to temperature, and basically what this is we got a gas grill upside down with infrared heat, screaming hot, 900 degrees Celsius, raining down heat onto our steak. So we're getting this up to temperature, and because this is a test, I only fired up one side and I want to leave the other one not on. And we're going to put on one steak, and when it gets too hot, we're going to be able to move it to the other side where we have less heat. Sprinkle on a little bit of salt on our steak. Now because it's an experiment, I'm going to do them one by one. So place them on our cast iron grill and then put it inside. Now there's 2 ways for me to control the temperature, with the gas knob and with the height. We're going to set it to full all the way up and let it crispen up really fast. Now look at that. That's maybe been 30 seconds or so. Now we got a nice bit of crust. I'm going to flip it around. I'm going to grill up the other side. Put it back in. And raise it up. Now look at that. We got a nice bit of crust, but it's not cooked yet. Let's measure the core temperature to see where we're at. We're at 17 degrees Celsius, so that's still room temperature. We're now going to set it to a low heat and then slowly let it continue. I'm really curious to see if we can get that beautiful crust and at the same time cook it to perfection. I'm going to turn it around just to make sure that we get an even cook on both sides. Let's take a look how far along we are. Look at that. That's a dark crust. Let's measure the core temperature. 51 degrees, 51.5. And my guess is if we let it rest right now, we're going to get the perfect cooked steak. So we're going to set it aside. Now if I look at that crust, I do like the amount of crust that we're getting, but I think we could have a little less black. So we're going to try again until we get it right. Now let's put the second steak on, and this time we're going to put it on, but we're going to put it on a low temperature at a low setting. Now we're basically going to try reverse sear. We're going to slowly cook it at a lower temperature, and then at the end we're going to finish it off, and we're going to see if that works better for the crust. So we're at 55 degrees already, and we did a slow cook. We got a little brown Maillard effect, but we didn't get that crust. So now we're just gonna take a few seconds and really heat things up. Look at that. It looks a little bit better, but it's not the crust that I'm looking for. I'm really looking for that, you know, where it almost gets hard, like a cracker. But it looks good, but it's not as beautiful and crusty as this one. So we're going to give it another try. This time I'm going to set it to low with a high burner on, put the steak on. Now let's see if we can get a better crust. And for me it's okay if the fat burns off a little bit, that's fine with me. You can see that where the fat is burning, it renders down onto the meat, and there the meat is actually not getting that beautiful crust. So I'm taking off that fat, putting it back in for a few more seconds. Now look at that, that is a beautiful crust. We'll do the other side as well. So I'm looking for that point where it switches from being like like a light brown to almost a dark red. That's much better. Look at that. That's a better crust. Let's take a look at the core temperature. 54, 56. Set it a little bit longer. I'm going to set it at a lower temperature because it's not fully cooked yet. Flip it around. Well, our steak is done. Let's take it off the grill. That looks good. And now we're going to let it rest, and then we're going to do our taste test. So while we let our steaks rest, we're going to finish off our relish. We'll take our bell peppers, shallots. There we go. Let's strain that off. Let's give it a quick try. Nice and crunchy, and it's got that acidity that we want. And to this we're going to add some mustard. And I'm using coarse mustard. And to sweeten things out, we're going to add a little bit of maple syrup. We don't want to add too much maple syrup because we still need that acidity. Let's slice into the steaks and then finish them off. First we'll take the one that is super crusty. You can hear it. Now let's bite into the one that we really seared up and made real crusty. That is a tasty steak, but there's this bitterness of burnt beef. This is not the right crust. This is not the way we want our crust to be. So let's slice into the one where we went really slow, almost like a reverse sear. It's a bit better, but no, we're missing kind of like that crispy outside on the steak. We'll slice into the last one. It looks a bit better. Now that is a juicy steak. The crust on the outside looks good, but it's still not what we're looking for. Well, these steaks, they didn't make the cut. If we take a look at them, well, they're a little bit pink in the middle, but we basically, even though we measured the temperature, we overcooked them. And probably this is because we went high on the outside temperature. The inside temperature was still low, but when we let them rest, they cook fully through. That doesn't make for a good tasting steak. But then you would expect at least the outside to be nice and crispy and exactly the way you want it to be, but it's not. So we got one more steak, one more try. I'm gonna try to make that one perfect. So I'm not going to cook it until 50 degrees Celsius or 52 degrees Celsius. I'm going to cook it to 45 degrees Celsius, and then we're going to let it rest and slice into it and see if maybe then we're going to get a good seared steak with a juicy inside. Let's fire back up the grill. Give her one more chance to make it perfect. We'll wait for the grill to get up to temperature and then we'll start searing it. We're going to give it a full blast, but we're going to cook it until a lower core temperature. Then we're going to let it rest and see. I hope this time we get it right. In she goes. Going to raise up the grill. I'm not going to put it all the way up, but half. So now got a nice crust on both sides. Gotta let it rest. Let's measure the core temperature, see if we did it right. Now this is what I did different. I just seared it on a high temperature and the core temperature is at 42 degrees Celsius right now. But we're not going to cook it any further. We're going to leave it like it is, let it rest for a few minutes, and then we're going to slice into it. Because the last time I cooked it to 50 degrees Celsius, it completely overcooked in the end. So now I want to see what it does. We can see that the steak is still cooking. The outside heat is cooking the inside of the steak. Much more than I would otherwise expect from, let's say, a cast iron grill or direct heat from grilling surfaces. So basically we got to stop much earlier than I'm used to. I so hope it stops at 54 degrees Celsius. 54, please stop. Please stop cooking. 54.1. 54.2. 0.3. 54.5, 0.6. Oh, please stop cooking, man. It stopped. It stopped. It stopped at 57.5. It stopped. I so hope it still looks good. It's gonna be medium done. Well, it's unbelievable. We took our steak out at 45 degrees Celsius, which is really low, and it kept on cooking until 55.7 degrees Celsius, even when it was outside of the grill. So the heat that we put in from the top, it just kept on cooking the steak. And look at the amount of gray that we got on our steak. Now the steak is still juicy and it's still okay, but it's way overcooked to what I'd like it to be. But the good thing about the steak, the crust really is nice and crunchy. When you sacrifice a juicy steak for getting a really good crust, I don't know. This is not perfect. This is not the perfect steak. It is a really, really good crust though, really good. I'm really excited about that, but we gotta continue our search. So expect more searches for a perfect steak, a perfect crust. We gotta figure out a way to make the perfect crust with getting a juicy, tender steak. Now let's finish off strong with our beautiful relish. We went through the trouble to making a beautiful relish. Let's make sure we give it some time to shine. I'll put the last slices of steak on top. So there we go. A beautiful crust, a really nice relish, but not the perfect steak. Now let's bite into this. That is a good combination. Well, the relish is fantastic. It really lifts the steak up, especially with a steak that is not perfect, but still okay. You see, this is a test, and with a test, things do not always go as planned. And I expected a better result. Of course, the crust was as expected, really good, but the steak could have been better. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed this video and give me a big thumbs up if you did. I also want to know in a comment down below what the next thing is that we should try to get that perfect crust. Let me know. Thank you to everyone that's supporting our channel through Patreon or through the sponsor button right here on YouTube. And see you guys in the next video. Until then, eet smakelijk and keep on grilling.